Hello, I'm Richard Adey. This is Sunday Profile. Today, the Australian who was kidnapped and held for 15 months, Warren Rodwell. In December of 2011, Warren Rodwell was living in Mindanao in the southern Philippines when he was abducted by a group from the militant Islamicist organisation Abu Sayyaf. Kidnapping is a money-making operation for them, and the original demand was for $2 million. What was finally paid, a year and 3 months later, was a tiny fraction of that amount. In the meantime, Warren Rodwell endured. He had little to eat and was always hungry. He was kept high in the mountains, in the jungles, but most of the time in mangrove swamp, and at night the mosquitoes came in clouds. Here he is speaking in a proof-of-life video after being held for just over a year.
I understand there are some negotiations. I do not get any information, updated information. The people around me normally don't speak English. I understand something is happening, but I don't know when. I do not expect to be released before the year 2013 at the earliest. I personally hold no hope at all for being released. I do not trust Abu Sayyaf. I do not trust the Australian government. I just don't trust anyone.
On his release in March last year, he was gaunt, exhausted and desperate. Now he looks rather better.
I am more healthier and weightier than I was prior to the kidnap at the moment. But that's the comfortable life, and especially from living in Queensland. But my health, I had to have a finger amputated on my right hand from where I was shot. That's about a year ago. I'm getting all the strength back now. The doctor, orthopaedic surgeon, said that he had done these operations a couple of dozen times, and although he might have been able to do a graft, he said of the 24 times he'd done them, people kept coming back and saying, take the finger off, because it was better to have a functioning 3-fingered hand rather than a dysfunctional 4-fingered one. 4 fingers plus the thumb. But the one I've lost is the index.
It's good to hear you're recovering, though, because, I mean, when we saw you just after you were released, it was shocking. You looked weak, you looked emaciated. In one report, you won't be pleased to hear this, but you were described as having seemed to have aged about 20 years.
That was actually Zoe Daniel from the ABC.
It was Zoe Daniel, yes.
Yeah, I've spoken to Zoe about that, or been in contact with her about it. But I thought that was rather eloquent, the way she expressed that. The other physical thing I had problems with were my feet. Because of the lack of new food and also lack of exercise, it was atrophy that I had in my feet and up to my shin. So I was deadened nerve endings. Then I could barely walk, and I ended up being in a wheelchair for some time. But the thing was, I'd lost all weight, and Zoe was quite accurate because the physiotherapist that had treated me afterwards said she'd never treated anyone that actually had damage to the nerve endings through the lack of use, because I'd be kept in confined spaces, usually in mangrove jungles.
Let's go back a bit, because if we go back to how the kidnapping occurred, you were living in the southern Philippines. Firstly, what took you there?
Well, I wanted to set myself up so I was going to live between 3 countries, between China, the Philippines and Australia, because I'd been working in China, teaching English at the universities, for the best part of 10 years. I was, I think, 51, 52 at the time. And I thought, well, I'll make a plan for 5 years, 10 years ahead. So I'll sort of go in, keep a low profile, get married.
And your wife was from the area, wasn't she?
Yes, I married someone intentionally from a provincial area, right? Because then I thought, well, I did end up getting temporary residence there. She wanted to be close to her family. But in the local area that I was in, by local standards, the area I was in was safe, but where my wife's village was, it was not safe. It was really, terrorist capital, of the Philippines. But I flew under the radar probably for about 6 months, but then I was realised I was there and kidnapped at that time.
Well, I want you to talk me through that. How did that actually happen?
The kidnapping itself, it was getting on to 6 o'clock, being basically equatorial enough there. Sun goes down about 6. I was had 2 weeks off doing all the extensions to the house and having some couple local builders. I was on the phone, only had a pair of shorts on, just outside the house. Then I heard this noise, and it was 4 men dressed in military greens. They bust down a gate. Then 2 popped up in front of me, and I was trapped between an outside wall and a perimeter wall. And within a minute or two, I had 2 guys, not far away, pointing rifles at me. I sort of looked blankly at them. The next thing, one fired. And my hand was on the side, and perhaps because I was standing side one, it looked like could have looked like I had an aggressive stance, right? So he shot me, and it went straight through my hand.